We'll have a roll call, please, Mrs. Nash.
Mr. Gomes?
Here.
Mrs. Boland?
Here.
Mr. Carlin?
Here.
Dr. Flowers?
Present.
Mrs. Gaines? Present. Mrs. Sylvia?
Here.
For the Pledge of Allegiance, I'm going to ask Mrs. Boland has a announcement for this evening.
So normally one of us would lead the Pledge of Allegiance, but tonight we have the honor of having Troop 3 here from Newport, Rhode Island, and they're going to come up and lead the pledge. Troop 3 has been instrumental in doing Eagle projects all throughout our community, a couple of which have been done here at the school. So this is our hometown boys here, and it's going to be led by Mac. Okay, so we'll wait till they all get up.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
You can use the mic, honey.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
So Troop 3 is here joining us for their, I think it's a community badge that they have to attend a public meeting. But boys, we understand if you can't stay for the whole meeting, just quietly file out the back when you've had as much as you can take.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen. Next would be moment of silence. Please keep the following individuals who have passed away in your thoughts and prayers. Thomas Kelly, retired special education teacher and uncle of Melissa Crowley Pell, paraeducator. Lenore Blasberg, mother-in-law of Holly Blasberg, NACTEC teacher. Betty Gianci, aunt of Eric Thomas, TMS grade 6 teacher. Margot Sullivan, cousin of Mary Beth Vieira, Rogers High School special education teacher. Richard Lendrum, retired Thompson PE and health teacher. George Clark, a retired Thompson and Rogers High School teacher. And Dorothy Heffernan Waterson, a retired reading teacher. Please keep them in your thoughts, and we'll have a moment of silence. Thank you. Next item on is item 1.5, and it is subcommittee appointments. And the following appointments will be made to the building subcommittee, and that's Kelly Loram. So we would need a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Motion to approve by Mrs. Boland, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Mrs. Nash, is there anybody signed up for public comment this evening?
Yes, we do have two people signed up for public comment. Diane Sheehan.
So for those that are signed up for public comment, just a brief reminder, the public comment should be kept to 3 minutes, and it should not pertain to something on the agenda for tonight, because you would be given the opportunity to speak on that. So, Mrs. Sheehan, thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Sheehan, Newport Public Schools art supervisor, and I live on 125 Van Zant in Newport, Rhode Island. And I just wanted to let you know that I came from a meeting for Christmas in Newport, and the calendars are hot off the press. So I have a box over there by Carlos. He can flag anybody down who needs them. And I just wanted to let you know that all of the activities that are on there are for the month of December, and that Newport Public Schools Music and Art Department have a number of activities that you can follow. So I will hand one to each of you, and anyone that is here is welcome to take a flyer. So enjoy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and Matt Cullen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Matt Cullen. I live at 19 Bayside Avenue, Newport, and I am a senior patrol leader at Troop 3 Newport. We're all here today to earn one of the requirements for the Eagle Scout required Communications Merit Badge. Troop 3 has been in Newport since 1947. We have operated here since then, and currently we meet at the Elks Lodge every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you. That's it? All right, moving on, next item is student activities, and this is given by the Student Council. Tonight we have from Rogers High School Student Council, we have Ben Pratt along with Josephine Caldwell-Ridner, who are here for the, give us the update on activities.
Thank you. So we're not going to focus on just sports today, but we'll give a quick overview. Football plays their last game at Tiverton High School on Thanksgiving. Volleyball hosts Narragansett this Thursday in a semifinals match. And just a reminder, as fall sports slow down, the winter season is picking up. So official practices for all the winter sports, they'll start after Thanksgiving. And just a quick summary of some of the recent assemblies we've had. Many students at Rogers are involved in the upcoming science fair. Students were able to watch a special viewing of Science Fair, which is about the International Science and Engineering Fair. Another assembly encouraged students to create a positive perspective on their surroundings and flip their 20. And most recently was a Veterans Day assembly, which was led by a group of students as part of their senior project. And then lastly, before I turn it over to Josephine, our new Rogers High School Cafe 301 is leading a donation which is collecting non-perishable food items.
Thanks, and just to start off where Ben left off, it's a very busy time for juniors. Juniors are preparing for their National History Day project, in which they'll have to be choosing a event, person, or group to fit the theme Triumph and Tragedy. National History Day is not only a big event for juniors, but also for Rogers as a community, because it is really a way for the outside community to come in and see us working to our potential and loving history, which is pretty crazy. Additionally, a portion of the junior class will be preparing for their induction into the National Honor Society on Thursday. As PR and outreach person of this chapter, I can confidently say that we have a lot of promising leaders coming from that class. To stay in the National Honor Society program, they'll have to maintain a 4.0 GPA, complete service hours regularly, and most importantly, they'll have to serve as role models for their fellow classmates. Seniors, and I'm sure Ben can second this, are in the middle of a very busy season, applying for colleges. Our college essays and resumes are due on Friday, and we're receiving really great help from our guidance counselors as well as our wonderful college advisor. The Rogers Theater Company is going to have their play, Christmas Carol, this coming December, so keep your eye out for that date. And immediately afterwards, we'll be holding auditions for our musical Godspell. Our director, Mr. Kaur, is phenomenal and just wanted us to spread that message. After the water main leak, construction has been pretty constant throughout the day, but we have had a lot of generous organizations donate water bottles and keep the students hydrated. At least for me, this setback has revealed the resilient spirit we have at Rogers High School and reflects well on the teachers, admin, and students who have soldiered on and worked really hard even through the banging from the construction. Students at Rogers have also played a more active role in bringing attention to the structural problems that we're experiencing. In a previous meeting, unfortunately I wasn't able to show up because of sports engagements. People encouraged me to mention the school student walkout that was performed. While I have my own opinions, I do think that it's really great that you guys are letting us express our opinions about this situation, and that there are a lot of actions being made for that. So thank you for your time, and I'll hand it off to whoever's next.
Thank you. Nice job. It's always good to have you guys here.
Mr. Chair, if I may, the organizations that have helped us out with the water, which we're very appreciative of, was Chartwell's our food provider, provider, Coca-Cola of New England, and presently now Crystal Springs is furnishing our high school until the water main is completed. So thank you for reminding me to mention them. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 4, resolutions and certificates of achievement. This evening we have a couple of awards to give out. The first one is a recognition of a student. In April of 2018, Mrs. Sheehan was asked to submit artwork representing the state of Rhode Island for the annual Easter egg roll at the White House. Each state was represented, and Pell Elementary School was Rhode Island's selection. Mrs. Sheehan worked with fourth grade student Millie Carapia on the design process with the state flag, bird, and state flower. Millie is now a fifth grader at Thompson Middle School and no stranger to the talents of the art world. And we have attached is a residential program and a large image of the Easter egg design that we can see, and I'm not sure if it was on the public, but it will be after tonight. There you go. And so at this time, I'd like Millie to come up, and I can give her present the award to her. Congratulations. Next one is Mrs. Sheehan herself, and Diane has been was selected to be a workshop presenter for the National Art Association Convention in March of 2019. The organization focuses on the latest trends in art education standards. One of over 1,700 applicants, Mrs. Sheehan was selected as a national presenter, as well as a presenter at the Rhode Island Art Educators Conference at Rhode Island College on November 3rd. This selection is an honor for Mrs. Sheehan, as well as her representation of Newport Public Schools, which she is always out there doing and fighting every day for our art programs and our art students. So congratulations to Diane. If she'd like to come up, I'll present the award to her. So this evening, the next recognition is going to be, as many of you know, probably all know, earlier this year, longtime school committee member Jo Eva Gaines decided that she was going to retire from the school committee and not seek another term after her 18 years, first elected in 2000 to the school committee. And she served many years as the chair and probably just about every role that a school committee member could serve. So this evening we have several resolutions and gifts to be presented to her. And the first one is a resolution and some flowers from the Newport Public Schools. And Mrs. Sylvia will read the proclamation. Resolution, I'm sorry.
Whereas on January 2nd, 2000, Jo Eva Gaines first took her seat on the Newport School Committee and was resoundingly re-elected in all subsequent elections through November 2016, after which in 2018, she decided to forego a re-election campaign, thus bringing her tenure on this committee to an end on December 1, 2018. And whereas during her almost 19 years of service on the Newport School Committee, Jo Eva served 4 two-year terms as chair and proudly moved the Newport schools forward with her unwavering belief that all children deserve a quality education to lead them to a successful future. And whereas, with a strong conviction as a former music teacher and guidance counselor, she not only strived for quality educational programs, She also advocated for safe, healthy, and modern facilities, playing an integral role as architect of the Thompson Middle School reconstruction project and the melding of all Newport elementary school children into the new state-of-the-art elementary school. And whereas Jo Eva has served on numerous school committee subcommittees with special attentiveness to early education for our youngest residents from birth through pre-K education. And whereas, in addition to the immeasurable time and energy she has dedicated to the Newport schools, Jo Eva simultaneously served in various capacities on the Rhode Island Association of School Committees, of which she is also a graduate of the Leadership and Masters Academies. She served as Executive Committee member, President, President-elect, immediate past President, as well as delegate and alternate to the Rhode Island School Committee Association at the National School Board Association annual meetings. And whereas in 2008, Jo Eva was the recipient of the Rhode Island School Association's Howard K. Award, which is given annually to an outstanding school committee member. And in 2017, Jo Eva was recipient of the Paul Crowley Award in recognition of her demonstrated long-standing commitment to improving quality education in all of Rhode Island. And whereas Jo Eva also continues to serve on the Rhode Island Board of Regents for elementary and secondary education, having been appointed and reappointed to this council since 1985 by various governors of Rhode Island, excuse me, with only the mandatory one-year break between her 9 three-year terms. And whereas the importance of Jo Eva's role in promoting and striving for perfection in public school education cannot be overstated. Now therefore be it resolved that the members of the Newport School Committee, on behalf of the residents and the children of Newport, do hereby express their most sincere appreciation to Jo Eva for her service, devotion, and dedication to the Newport Public Schools, and extend their very best wishes to her in all future endeavors. And be it further resolved that in recognition of her role in seeing the Pell Elementary School come to fruition, the outdoor classroom, which is new, will be named in perpetuity from this day forward the Jo Eva Gaines Outdoor Learning Center. And be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution signed by the chairman, countersigned by the superintendent of schools, be presented to Mrs. Gaines and spread upon the records of this committee. Dr. Bean, I think there are some other presentations coming. I hope my voice sounded okay. I have my voice fixed just for you.
So, Jo Eva, on behalf of all the administrators in Newport, we want to give you this gift, and we hope you think about us when you look at it, whatever room you put it in. It's a picture of all of us.
So you're gonna have to stay over there for a minute.
Oh, wow.
So the next presentation will be to Jo Eva from the principals, Tracy Westman from Pell, Lori Sullivan from Thompson, and Jared Vance and Mr. Young from Rogers and the NACTech program.
Face the camera.
Thank you. It's Christmas. Oh, boy, great. Notepads. I won't be taking notes here anymore. And a shirt. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. All right. Something I've been putting on, and a mug. Great. Oh, right. Hoodie.
All right.
Thank you.
Run out of hands.
Ooh. Another mug. You can have one. Thank you very much.
So there's one final gift that we have for Joeva that many of us know, and now everybody will know after tonight, that one of her favorite snacks is a good snickerdoodle cookie, and we happen to have Chef Cabley and his group make some of the best snickerdoodles in the world. So there's a presentation of some snickerdoodles, and I think there's enough for you to share if you'd like. Unless the box is for Paul and one's for you, I'm not sure.
The ones in the box are for you, and the chef is here tonight, and his crew made snickerdoodles for you. So for what the chair, Mr. Gomes, just said, snickerdoodles are Mrs. Gaines' favorite cookie. And anytime we have some late nights at the office, she's always looking for the snickerdoodles. So in celebration of that, we've made snickerdoodles for everyone on behalf of Mrs. Gaines. And I should say Chef has. Thank you, Chef.
Thanks, Chef.
It's all yours if you'd like to say a few words.
I'm not one who's known for being speechless.
You have to turn the thing around.
But this was, thank you. Okay, I'll start over. I'm not known for being speechless. I am a woman of few words. I think you all know that. But tonight is really very special. I hadn't planned to make a speech, but I didn't know all these gifts were coming either. But the idea of having a classroom named for me is quite an honor, and something I believe the last thing I expected. I'm really honored by that, and I thank all of you for thinking of me in that way. It's been great the last 18 years. I can say that I've seen a lot of progress in our schools. And if I hadn't seen that, I would think I would have wasted 18 years. But these have been 18 years well spent. The most promising thing that I think that has occurred over the last 18 years is the fact that our town council, our city council, is now working with us. And it takes a village. It takes all of us in Newport to make our schools the best. And we need to remember to celebrate the successes, work on those things that need to be worked on, but let's minimize those shortcomings and just work to turn them around. Thank you all very much for re-electing me all those times. And now my husband won't have to eat so much takeout. I'll be home to make food. Thank you.
Thank you. So I just said to Joe Eva that she's not the only one with public service. As many of you know, her husband's former longtime servant and mayor of Newport, Paul Gaines, is here tonight, and I just asked him if they could get a picture up there together before to commemorate tonight. So I said, does Paul want to come get a picture? And she said, if you ask him, he might come up. So come on up. We have Jennifer here. Jennifer will take a photo, so it'll be a nice opportunity for you to get a picture together on Joe Eva's last night. So. Thank you. Congratulations again, and I know that for my first 2 years so far in the school committee, Joe Eva has been invaluable. That always a phone call away, and I can always count on her for good advice, and I look for that. So at least I still have her phone number. I know she's not going anywhere. So congratulations again. So next we'll move on into section 5, which is action items. The first one is 5.1, which is a request for approval to award bid number NPS 19-013 for kitchen equipment. Dr. Bean is available if anybody has any questions. I believe this is for, for Thompson Middle School, a microwave steamer that was purchased. It's going to be purchased through a grant. So I don't know if anybody.
Mr. Chair, I move for approval.
Second.
Motion for approval has been made by Mrs. Sylvia, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Is there discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. 5.2 is a request for approval of policy number 1545, order of business, regular meetings. Dr. Flowers is the chairman of the policy subcommittee and is here this evening to discuss that if needed. A motion would be in order first, prior to discussion.
This concerns the order of business at the regular meetings.
Do a motion first. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Mrs. Sylvia. We'll have discussion. Dr. Flowers.
Yeah, this involves moving the public comment to later in the meeting. And the paragraph states that the public comment period shall be a time when the public may address the committee on one subject only and for no longer than 3 minutes. Issues to be discussed shall not include matters to be considered or discussed as part of the regular committee agenda and must be related to substantive school department business. No comments regarding personnel or job performance are allowed. And that's pretty standard. And the rationale behind moving it to later in the on the agenda is simply that it really gets a lot of the business out of the way. And it has happened a number of times that some items have been addressed at the traditional time, it's like you heard tonight. And because the public of necessity sees just the main topic of whatever's on the agenda, quite often some of the issues that are discussed are kind of within some of these other parts of the agenda. Furthermore, during the meeting, sometimes people realize, oh gee, my question was answered. So people obviously may sign up to speak, but then may say, oh, and you can always say, my question has been answered. It's just a form of moving that to later on in the meeting process, and it would follow after the reports from the superintendent and staff. And that's it.
Thank you.
And this is the first reading, by the way.
Any other comment?
Yes?
Yeah, Mrs. Boland.
I will not be supporting this tonight because I feel as if, right now we're in a position we're asking the teachers to come in and do what's right for parents, which is having the conferences later in the day, making it convenient for them. I feel by moving it to the last thing in the meeting, it's saying to the parents and to the community that, we're going to put you at the end and not the beginning, knowing very well that parents have to get home to be with their kids, their families. There are not many that can, stretch it out till 9 o'clock. So I would support moving it to after, the student activities and resolutions and achievements, because it's kind of been a problem that the last couple times, there were some very heated discussions that weren't maybe appropriate for your children, to have to sit and listen to, and I hope that doesn't happen again. I'm all for leaving it to 3 minutes, but I will absolutely not support moving public comment to number 8.
Thank you. Mr. Collin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I want everyone to understand that Dr. Flowers puts an enormous amount of work into the policy subcommittee, which she chairs, so we should all be appreciative of that. But for the reasons that Mrs. Boland just mentioned, in particular, because we have asked for it. Members of the committee, elected officials ask to be in attendance, no matter how long it takes, but the public should be offered their opportunity to speak as soon as possible. So I echo Mrs. Boland with the thanks to Dr. Flowers again for her work, but I will be voting against this recommendation.
So, Mrs. Gaines.
I'm on the policy subcommittee, and I think Mrs. Boland's suggestion is a very good one. Moving it after resolutions and certificates of achievement, because that's where, if we have students who are being recognized or receiving some kind of recognition, that's when most parents and students would come, and they often leave after that. So I would support moving it to a new number 5 rather than the end of the meeting. I would support that.
You want to make that a motion?
So, okay, that's fine. So if, now that's 3 of you that have spoken. If one of you'd like to put that in the form of a amendment or
Okay, so
amendment to the
I'm going to
motion.
add an amendment to, so instead of moving it to number 8, we would move it to number 5, resulting in all the things that followed to be moved, be moved down one number.
I second the motion.
Okay, the motion's been made by Mrs. Boland, seconded by Mrs. Gaines, to move public comment to after item 4, which would place it at item 5 on the agenda rather than item 8 presented tonight. So it would be amendment to this policy as it is here tonight.
It's the amendment. We'll vote on the amendment.
So yes, we would have to vote on the amendment. So any comment on the amendment? Seeing none, all those in favor of amending the policy to move public comment to item 5 rather than item 8, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So the ayes have it. The amendment, the policy has been amended. The motion has been amended. Now we would need a motion to approve this policy on the first reading this evening.
As amended.
As amended.
As amended.
So moved.
Motion's been made by Mrs. Sylvia and seconded by Mrs. Gaines. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, next item on the agenda is 5.3, which is policy number 4613. It's the interview process and procedures for selection of principals and above. Again, Dr. Flowers is chairman of the policy subcommittee, is here to speak on that. A motion would be in order to approve that policy. We need a motion?
Waiting for the motion?
Yep, motion for to approve the policy.
So second.
It's made by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Mrs. Sylvia. We'll have discussion on that. Dr. Flowers?
It's the whole interview process again, as I said, for principals and above, in the administrative level. An interview committee composed of a teacher, a principal, a community partner, and at least one parent or guardian. And then that's the change in it, and it goes on, a central office administrator, and it names all the people who are on the interview committee that reflects the ethnic diversity of the district. And then in the second paragraph, and this is all accessible too on the website, every effort will be made, excuse me, to involve parents and community members. The Director of Human Resources shall maintain a list of potential parents and community members, so they can be called in. And that, just as a sidebar here, that is something that we're really trying to work to develop that particular list. So that is really the change, and it just delineates exactly who's supposed to be on the committee.
Thank you, Dr. Flowers. This is an important, this was added, one of the things that we strive to do is have parental involvement. So one of the areas that we were lacking, the policy didn't sort of mandate the fact that we had parents or a parent minimal on any of the interview committees that we have for our teaching staff and for our administration. So this will mandate it, and it'll also, I encourage parents that are out here this evening and do know the meeting to feel free to contact the school administration. The Director of Human Resources is who puts these committees together to get your name on a list and to make yourself available to participate in these meaningful committees that to hire our staff throughout the year. So that's the importance of this, is to get more parental involvement on our appointment and promotion committees. Any other discussion? Mrs. Boland.
Yes, I just wanted to point out one important element that's been in this policy, but maybe some of you don't know it. Any and all qualified Newport Public School employees and Newport residents shall be granted an interview upon submission of a completed application. So for any job that's open in Newport, if you are meet all the qualifications and you live in the city of Newport, you will be given an interview. So sometimes, unless you read the policy, you might not know that.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to approve the policy as read this evening, signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item up is a request for approval of policy number 4650, appointments and promotions. This basically follows up. There's two separate policies that we have. One is for the interview process and procedures, as we just did for principals and above, and this one is appointments and promotions for the rest of our staff that are hired. So it's similar to the last one, adding parental involvement to the policy. So a motion would be in order to approve the policy this evening, made by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Mrs. Sylvia. And Dr. Flowers, if you'd like to
This is
explain.
4650, it's under Human Resources, and it emphasizes that the most qualified person shall be hired for each position, and it's just a clarifying language, an ad hoc initial interview committee appointed by the Director of Human Resources in accordance to the terms of the composition of the interview committee and qualified candidates eligible in policy number 4612, shall review all applications and make recommendations to the superintendent. And it does continue to say, the superintendent of schools shall fulfill his or her role as defined in state law regulation 16-2-1197 by recommending the candidate that the superintendent deems most qualified for the position for appointment by the school committee. So it just clarifies that after the interview, superintendent sees who he or she thinks is most qualified, and then the school committee appoints. And it's a clarifying language.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Next order of business is item 5.5, is request for approval of changes to the 2018-2019 school calendar. We developed the school calendar in January, February for the school year. This calendar was developed in February. Therefore, this calendar was developed in February of last year. And we had doubled up some days here with the anticipation of negotiating with TAN over the course of the summer with their contract to change some things on the calendar. However, due to the financial stuff that we had, TAN graciously rolled over their contract, which we therefore didn't have negotiations this summer. So now we are going to put the calendar back into like a normal calendar year. We will have parent-teacher conferences, will be a no-school day, and so we're separating those dates out, which would, in essence, add 2 days back into the school calendar. So there is a motion to approve the calendar. Is there a motion to approve the calendar as submitted this evening?
No.
Mr. Chair,
I understand. We'll do that in discussion. So the motion to approve by Dr. Flowers, seconded by Mrs. Gaines. Any discussion? Mrs. Boland.
Yes, I think I'd like to hear the superintendent, but a recommendation was made by a teacher, and I'd like to hear, I think the superintendent's going to comment on
right.
her
When the agenda came out and the backup came out, a teacher did make a recommendation to us, and I'd like to support that recommendation. That recommendation requires us taking May 24th and making that now a school day. And the second recommendation is June 6th, which was listed as a PD day. That will become a school day. So May 24th will now become a school day. It was set, and June 7th? I'm sorry, June 7th will be a school day, June 7th.
So,
And that would mean our last day of school would still remain for students at June 17th.
very good. So a motion would be in order
So
to,
moved.
an amendment to the calendar as proposed this evening would be in order.
So moved.
Second?
The motion is made by Mrs. Boland, seconded by Mrs. Sylvia. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote.
Wait, there's somebody out in the
Oh,
audience.
would you like to speak? Go ahead. Sure, come on up. You gotta yell out at me.
So hi, I'm Melissa Turner. I'm a parent of a second grader at Pell School and also a teacher at Thompson Middle School. So I just wanted to thank the superintendent for the suggestion that I made to try to make it for families, that it wouldn't change the end of school date by switching a couple of those days around. I wanted to thank Kathy Sylvia for corresponding back and forth with the email. And I know conferences are like the hidden taboo in the room, so I just wanted to thank Becky Boland for initiating a meeting with TAN leadership, with Ray Gomes and another school committee member or two to have a dialogue about conferences. I think you can see right here, when we all respect each other and work together, we can accomplish a lot more. The teachers at Newport, we often get portrayed as the bad guys, you know, the big union, but I'm here to tell you as a parent that our teachers go above and beyond every day for our kids in this city, and I really appreciate that. And also as a teacher of 27 years and a member of TAN, I can tell you that we really do have the kids' best interests at heart, and so I'm very hopeful that going forward we can work together to collaborate more and solve problems instead of create them. Thank you.
Thank you. So there's a motion to amend the calendar as presented this evening. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Now a motion would be in order to approve the calendar as amended this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Made by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 5.6, and it's a request from Dr. Bean to approve the attached interagency agreement with East Bay Community Action Program for Family Service Coordinators The Family Service Coordinators provide valuable support to Newport Cares, which is children access and resources and educational support. Funding is provided through Title I and the McKinney-Vento Homeless Grant. The interagency agreement runs from 10/1/2018 through 9/30/2019. A motion would be in order to approve that this evening.
So moved.
Second.
Made by Mrs. Sylvia, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 5.8, I'm sorry, 5.7. 5.7, this is a proposal generated from RFP 19-011, leasing of location on existing cell towers at Rogers High School for telecommunications facilities were received from 2 vendors. After the review of the proposals, AT&T was the only bid that met the minimum requirements of the RFP, offering $61,000 a year with a 3% escalation per year. It is a 3-year lease with 2 additional 3-year terms possible at the district's discretion. The recommendation is for the school committee to approve this lease arrangement per the RFP.
So moved.
Motion made by Mrs. Gaines to approve, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion? Mr. Collin?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will vote against this. I maintain that, well, let me back up. Every existing school committee has the right to reverse its opinion on any policy or resolution that it has previously approved, and certainly an existing committee cannot bind a future committee to anything but, well, I suppose they can bind in the case of a contract. However, I will vote against this because of what this committee has voted on prior to tonight, namely to, at the end of the contracts for the 3 existing cell phone providers, to terminate the contract, or to fail to renew, to not renew the contracts. I think we've spoken about this, and I will remain consistent with what I've said. So I will vote against it again, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Very good. Mrs. Boland?
For the same reasons I gave before, I'm not changing my position on this. I will be voting against it.
Okay, any other discussion on the motion? Oh, Mr. Galvin.
Just one reminder, Mr. Chairman, if you do vote to approve it, I would suggest including in your motion to authorize legal counsel to enter into or to prepare a satisfactory lease.
Okay, understood. So the motion would, the motion would be to have legal counsel negotiate the, or to draw up their respective lease per the RFP proposal 19-011.
Mr. Chairman?
Should we, just a moment, Mr. Galvin, should we amend the motion as it was made?
It's the next
It's
item.
the next item. It's the next item on the.
No, the next item.
No, that's a separate item. This is for the award of this particular RFP, so that will require preparation of a satisfactory lease. So it should be either amended, the motion that is before you, or included in that motion, depending on the
We'll do
person
it
who
that way.
made the motion or seconded it.
Just to dot the i's and cross the t's, we'll amend, we take a motion to amend the motion as made to include Mr. Galvin would draw up a lease per the requirements of RFP 19-011.
So moved.
Second.
Amendment, motion made, seconded by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion on the amended? Mr. Collin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Excuse my lack of knowledge of the English language here. I think Mrs. Gaines mentioned it, or somebody on the school committee mentioned it, but 5.8, what is the difference between the amended motion we just made and the item number 5.8, authorization of legal counsel to proceed regarding cell tower tenancy? Tenancy is the act of occupying a space that you lease from someone?
What that topic will deal with is the committee's direction, if any, relative to the remaining occupants on the tower. The committee has taken action in the past. It's been relatively passive over the past number of months relating to it. If the committee so desires and sees fit to authorize action in relation to removing those other tenants, that's the topic of 5.8 for discussion. 5.7 deals only with this RFP for the
One tenant.
for the one tenant.
So the last question that I have is, will the amended motion on 5.7 require that the school committee, as a body, come back and approve the contract that you, Mr. Galvin, proposed to the committee?
It would be my expectation that there's going to be a level of interaction with the successful bidder on the language of the lease, ultimately resulting in a final document that I would suggest being presented to the committee as a whole to approve.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chair,
I think, okay, Mrs. Gaines.
I'm supporting this motion because I read somewhere that the city council could reclaim the property, lease the tower, and they would garner the rent. So I would just as soon keep that money coming to the Newport schools rather than going to the general fund of the city. Therefore, I'm supporting this motion.
Thank you. Dr. Flowers.
You know, going through all of the specifics on the documents here, it appears to me at least that quite a few of the concerns that had been brought up legitimately in the past several years are being addressed, and obviously in the sense of a contract will be held to. I would imagine that this will be looked at very, very closely. This is why Mr. Galvin will be drawing, crossing those T's and dotting the I's, and that it's an opportunity to see that the right thing is being done. And I just want to reaffirm what Mrs. Gaines just said, that obviously it's going to be somewhere, these towers, so people can get access to the signal. So we may, if it's a case of who gets the revenue, the school department should. That's it.
Great, thank you. Any other discussion? We will now vote on the amended proposal, the amended motion that was made for Mr. Galvin to draw up a lease per the RFP that was returned from the vendor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed?
Nay.
Nay.
Motion carries. Now we will now have a motion would be in order to approve the amended motion as made.
So moved.
Second?
Motion by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Mrs. Sylvia. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Next item is 5.8 on the agenda, and 5.8 is the authorization to have legal counsel proceed regarding cell tower tenancy. The travel of this, as Mr. Collin and Mr. Galvin just touched on briefly, was about probably 18 months ago now, shortly after I first got on. We were tasked with the cell tower, and the leases came up, and they were non-renewed. The city stepped in and asked us to allow the cell tower folks to stay there. There was a concern for public safety in the south end of the city and the loss of cell service. As a result of that, over the past 18 months, the city council, or the city in conjunction with the carriers on the tower, have looked around the south end of the city for other locations for the tower and weren't able to find any. As a result, the determination was made that the tower would stay. We put out the RFP for leasing of the tower, and of the 3 tenants there, only one of the 3 tenants, I shouldn't say that, only 2 of the 3 tenants returned responses to the RFP, with one of them not meeting the minimum requirements. So in essence, the 2 other cell tower carriers there did not respond to the RFP for renewal of the lease. And this language this evening will authorize Mr. Galvin to move forward with their removal from the site. So a motion would be in order to,
So moved.
Mrs. Gaines, motion made by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by
Second?
Mrs. Sylvia. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 5.8, adjustments to the Thompson Middle School schedule. I believe this is... Excuse me? 5.9, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman?
5.9, this is adjustments to the Thompson Middle School schedule that largely came out of the meeting that was held last month at Thompson Middle School regarding the changes to the schedule made this year and some response to the meeting that was made and the comments that were heard at the meeting. And I believe Dr. Bean and Mrs. Sullivan, the principal, here and available to answer questions.
Mr. Chairman?
Mrs. Sylvia.
I have a question as to the cost of the part-time art teacher at $70,000. Is that in our budget?
No, it's not.
Mr. Chairman, for the purpose of continuing the conversation, I'm not signaling how I'll vote, but I motion to approve.
So we would have a motion to approve the adjustments as recommended here this evening, seconded by Mrs., who was, I heard it, I don't know, Mrs. Gaines. May
I continue?
Now you may continue with discussion.
It's very difficult for me because I really support the arts. But I also know the city has done a lot to help the schools out. We've had some real financial issues. And their biggest complaint to us is spending money that is not there in the budget. And therefore, I can't, in good conscience, approve hiring the part-time art teacher at this point when there's no money set aside for it. What I do hope, I know everybody's going to start working on the FY20 budget shortly, and that the position will be put in then. But I'm sorry to say I just can't support an unbudgeted expense.
Okay, Mrs. Gaines?
I'd just like to hear the presentation in case there is some hope that you have to cover this expense.
When we listened to everything that was said 2 weeks ago, we heard from students and parents and teachers about, concerned about the schedule and the fact that we lost a .5 art teacher and the impact on the arts. So, we looked at the schedule, and in order to be able to create some more targeted reading support, and in addition giving the 5th and 6th grade that second art period, the solution is to have a .5 art. The other piece that we did investigate before the presentation 2 weeks ago was looking into some of our community partners. Since then, we have reached out to 2 retired art teachers who we have a tentative meeting after Thanksgiving with them. But that would be to offer, an after-school program that would be targeted specifically to 5th or 6th. And if their schedules could support, they could possibly support the power hour, specifically around 5 and 6. But they are certified art teachers, but they're retired. So it's in no place, a solution. Our first solution was to hire back a .5 art teacher. We knew when we were losing positions last year, it was going to impact, our programs and our exploratory program. But like we said from the start, our goal with this schedule was to have heterogeneous classes, a accelerated track for math, extra additional time to teach the Common Core standards for the higher track math, and also to create a consistent exploratory program. Those were our goals. In addition, to create some personalized exploration time for all the students at Thompson.
Mrs. Boland.
Yeah, I have some questions about the art teachers. would this, the after-school, would that be paid? Would it also be paid during the school day? Would we be paying the teachers to do this? The retired teachers?
Mrs. Boland, during the day, during power hour, those would not be paid times. In the afternoon, it would be run through the Newport Community School, so any payment would come through them.
Right. Just because I know that we have an art teacher out on layoff, so we wouldn't want to violate.
Right.
Any kind of contract, yeah.
Nor
we've
would
already-
the retired teachers that we talked to.
Okay,
Yeah.
that was.
We were just trying to come up with some solutions.
Right. Because we haven't gotten to the budget portion of this meeting, but it's a big concern among many of us that this year, that we keep on track, and there's some indications that, that there were some things that were found later, and we may not be totally on track right now to meet the budget by the end of the year. So it's very hard. It's a conundrum up here because we all want to put the half art teacher back in right now, but until we find out where we really are with all of the positions, and have that validated by the city, we can't really, and that's going to come up later about talking about new positions, I think.
Mrs. Gaines.
I think Becky is correct. It is a conundrum. We were in finding a solution, finding relief for the financial problems that we are in right now. There was an agreement that we would stick to non-essential. We would not. Non-essential elements would not be added to the budget. I'm not saying that art is non-essential, because I really believe it is. But again, we don't have $70,000 in the budget. So how can we put in a program that we don't have the money for under the present circumstances? That's my question.
Mr. Kate, certainly come up to the microphone.
Kate Dussel, teacher at Thompson Middle School. My understanding is that hiring a half-time art teacher isn't just about reinstituting an art program at Thompson, but it's also about easing the burden on our reading teachers who are unable to provide services for our students. So it's not just about the art program. This also solves a much bigger issue for our students. Thank you.
Mr. Collin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Question for Dr. Germain or Dr. Bean or whomever can answer this. First, a statement or a comment. As we know, in the last or in the fiscal 19 budget process, we eliminated a position. Without speaking about, without naming personnel, can somebody explain to me how there would be any way, given the contract that exists with the Teachers Association of Newport, if we vote tonight to accept this proposal, and there's more than just the art portion of the proposal, if we vote to accept the proposal, would there be any way that we would not be allowed to recall the 0.5 essentially laid off teacher? In other words, what I'm looking for is I'm looking for something of a guarantee that the teacher who was laid off, should we approve this, will be brought back on.
We do have to offer it to that person, yes.
Thank you, Dr. Germain.
So I have a couple of questions as well, and it's probably a good time to plug them in. As far as the fixes and from the meeting, one of the concerns that was also much discussed in the meeting that we had with parents last month was the power hour. Are there any suggested fixes or suggestions on the issues that were brought up about power hour?
Do you mean as in what we're going to offer during Power Hour? Because
Well,
we
the
talked about the
concern-
art and things like that? Is that what you're referring to?
The issues around Power Hour, what the offerings would be, or any thought about Power Hour, because I have something I can ask. If not, I was just looking to see if there was any ideas brought up about Power Hour.
The request for the next round of Power Hour items from the teachers went out at the very tail end of last week. And one of the things that I asked teachers to consider was the Genius Hour or Google 20% time, which allows the students to decide on a project that they personally are interested in. They present that to the teacher, and they go ahead and design a research project that they conduct as a way to personalize that to themselves. So I had pushed that out to teachers looking for volunteers, and those are due back to me tomorrow.
Okay, one of the things I'd like to ask is, was there any consideration, one of the things I heard at the meeting last month that concerned me was it appeared that the Power Hour was a result of the scheduling, but probably enough planning time hadn't been provided for the Power Hour. And one of the thoughts I had was whether we could eliminate the Power Hour, develop a committee of parents and teachers and admin to look at this and report back in a couple of months with the hope. I think Power Hour is a valuable part of the calendar and the schedule, and I think it serves a purpose, but I'm wondering if we had adequate time to plan it. And one of my suggestions would be to remove the Power Hour and split the time either through the schedule to offer more time in the core subjects in the schedule and study it for a period of time and implement it over time over the course of the year and add it in either later in the year or to add it in beginning in September of next year. Has any thought been given to that?
One of the immediate issues that I see with that is that during Power Hour, that is also when we run our band, chorus, and orchestra classes. So if we were to take that time and divide it out among the other periods of the day, it would be eliminating band, chorus, and orchestra.
Mrs. Gaines.
Does Power Hour factor into personalized learning? And is that not a requirement?
Yeah, that was the whole point of Power Hour.
I have a question about that. So,
Mrs. Boland.
I mean, just hearing what Mr. Gomes had to say, I would support, something along those lines. I think we jumped into that too quickly. I'm also concerned with was it addressed at all, the concern about not having curriculum to use during Power Hour? How's that being addressed? Is that not a concern? Where are we with that?
Power Hour was never something that was designed with a true curriculum that would be attached to it. It was teachers sharing passions with students. It was teachers having the opportunity to meet with students in smaller groups, students different than what they would see every day in their classes, and to teach them something that would be a little bit different.
Mrs. Gaines.
If Power Hour is eliminated, how do you institute personalized learning? That is
Advisory.
required.
Advisory.
I want to hear it.
Yeah. So they have one advisory block right now in the schedule that could be done during that time.
And that would satisfy the requirement?
For now, it would.
I've heard that advisory hasn't started yet. Is that correct?
That is correct. We had hoped to have advisory start right at the end of October, first week of November. We hit a small snag with Second Step, which is the company that we are using. We discovered that the materials for grade 5 were not totally available online as we had been told that they would be. So we needed to re-scramble our advisories. Our next day, too, is Monday the 19th, and that will be when it'll be starting.
So, whoever's first, go ahead. Please identify yourself as you know.
Diane Sheehan, art supervisor and an art educator at Pell. I just have a question just on the numbers of the .5 position. A .5 position is $70,000 salary?
It says approximately 70.
Yeah, that's salary and benefits.
That is the salary?
And benefits.
And benefits. Okay. Because that seems awful high.
It is, but that's probably the benefits.
So I have Nicole Eichhardt here, the only Thompson Middle School art educator, and she's going to just address the actual certification with teaching art as opposed to the Power Hour and other courses that are being introduced that do not have a certification by an art educator and curriculum.
Thank you. I guess a couple of things. I don't know if this is going to be more of comment or a question, but the concern right now is bringing in some teachers, that are retired to fill in some space in the schedule. We have completely new standards, okay? The new standards are very broad, and they're really preparing kids for the workforce. And all of the language is asking the art teachers to open up a whole new world for kids to understand how they can use their creativity later in life. And it's language that's basing, it's the language that they're going to need to understand where their creativity comes in later in their careers. It's not just, so my concern is that the Power Hour with teachers and talented people showing students how to draw and drawing with them and doing crafts and things of that nature, I love that. I think it's amazing that we have an open, we have tons of talent on our staff, etc. However, there's a whole language that's going to, the 5th and 6th grade sitting in there with the teachers, and it is self-guided. We've had, it's obvious, you walk by an art room, there's a lot of kids, they're just drawing, they're just doing their thing. And
we had been told that all of the materials were going to be available online. After our classes had already been set, we discovered that that was not the case. We had to reach back out to Second Step and order additional materials, and our guidance counselors had to rework our advisory classes for that.
As a parent, I don't want to hear that a glitch is affecting my child's education. If I went into school today and my computer didn't work, which I teach on the smart board, if that didn't work, I don't get to say, guess what, we're not doing anything today because I hit a glitch. I figure it out. I teach a different way. I put something in place so that the students in my class are learning. I'm sorry that you hit a glitch, but my child is now sitting around not doing anything. And it's frustrating every day when she comes home and says she's not being graded in Power Hour. I believe it might be a pass-fail thing. She's not being graded in Cluster Challenge. It's a pass-fail thing. She's not being graded in Advanced Math because that's what she does sometimes during Cluster Challenge. So 3 classes she's not getting grades in, and my child is just a normal child. If she's told this isn't going to count for anything, I'm going to tell you how much effort she's going to put into it. She's just a normal kid. But she does read and write above grade level, and yet she's doing that 3 times a day and gets no other opportunity. Sometimes we have to make choices. And I understand that you want to offer everything to everybody, but in high school, if you are not prepared for an AP class, your guidance counselor will advise you against taking an AP class. Middle school, maybe if they are not ready to take Spanish because they don't have everything else together in their lives, I don't know what that would be, then maybe that's a choice that they have to make. It shouldn't affect my child who is ready to take it. And this is the 3rd time I've spoken to the school committee. You guys allowed this to happen by not asking the right questions when it was put before you, that we put all of these things in place. I understand they didn't bullet the points and say, we will lose Spanish, we will lose art, we will lose these things. You guys didn't ask those questions at the time. And right now, yes, it might take $70,000 to put it back in place, but put it back in place. My child shouldn't be affected because you didn't ask the right questions. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Collin.
Thank you. With due respect, Grania, I did ask the right questions. I asked them many, many times, and I got to pinch myself now and later tonight. I cannot believe that this is happening. I can't believe the role reversal here. I'm supporting the superintendent, and my colleagues are saying we got to watch out for the money. What the hell's going on? I mean, I think I agree again with everything that Mr. Gomes said. We need to get to the bottom of it, and we need to perhaps, whatever time it takes, we need to perhaps have more than just one more meeting and address the issues that are at stake. But we do have a solution, albeit a Band-Aid. We have something before us tonight. I'm going to vote for whatever continuance that Mr. Gomes or anybody else puts forward. But when we ask for something, just because we don't get the entire pie, we should not, and this is me saying this, I can't believe I'm saying this, we should not be critical of the portions of the pie that are brought to us, which we enjoy. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So again, I don't know if we want to put that in a motion or vote on the recommendations that are before us, but again, my one question would be, I understand the superintendent's not available that week. November 19th, does that give, I'm looking down towards Kim and Lori, does that give you enough time to answer the questions that were posed to you this evening? Or I'd rather not go into December because that gets into another school committee meeting, another school committee that'll be sworn in on the 1st.
So some of the things that were just mentioned, the pass-fail, my understanding is that the courses last year were pass-fail, the TI, the TA, those were all pass-fail. The whole point of the rescheduling was to make sure that TI time was a little bit more scheduled and a little bit more productive, and so called Power Hour and or Cluster Challenge still pass-fail. So that grading system didn't change. In terms of the suggestion to utilize the foreign language teachers in that first block, that would give the 6th grade one foreign language exploratory program. But there's the question on the preps. So 2 out of the 4 days, it would work out if we were looking at those different classes as different preps. So, I understand what you're saying. I don't know if she's still here. Oh, she's right. But, you know, there's question on whether they're different preps or they're the same prep.
So you'd be able to give us some more definitive answers on November 19th if we put the meeting off until then, it sounds like. That would give you enough time to investigate.
Yeah.
Okay. So there would be a motion in order to put this off to a meeting November 19th based on the 3 points we've heard this evening. Motion's been made by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? Thank you. So we'll have that at a special meeting, and I can promise you that there'll be some decision on November 19th, and it'll be held at Thompson Middle School. Sure, step right up.
I'm Erica Hansen. I'm the French teacher at Thompson. Right now, those 3 classes are 3 distinct classes. So if you added the 6th grade, the email I got said it's a culture class, so I'm not sure what that would look like or what your expectations are. I've been teaching language for 11 years at Thompson. The 7th grade, we do the first 3 chapters of the book to prepare them for 8th grade, because they'll be taking either French or Spanish for a full year, with the hope that they will be prepared for French and Spanish too at Rogers. Even though you've drastically cut their hours, they may not be as well prepared as they have been in the past. Adding 6th grade culture class would give the 6th graders some exposure but it would not be the same 6th grade French and Spanish classes that we have had in the past. If you want to help kids read and write better, you need to start foreign language at the elementary school. That's what your neighbor Middletown is doing. You need to start looking at what other schools in the state are doing. They're increasing foreign language time. They aren't cutting it.
Thank you. So the next item on the agenda would be item 5.10. It's adoption of the City Council approved corrective action plan for Newport Public Schools fiscal year 18. This is a formality. There was a plan proposed by the city that was put together in conjunction with the city administration and the school. And the plan was submitted to the state for approval, and it has been submitted. The City Council approved the plan at their October 24th meeting, and our approval is necessary to support the plan to correct the deficit issues that we had this past school year.
Mr. Chair. Second.
Motion's been made by Mrs. Gaines, seconded by Mrs. Sylvia. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in, oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Flowers.
I just wanted to reemphasize point number 4, that the city administration has implemented a freeze for the rest of fiscal year 2019 on non-essential purchases and new hires. The goal is to have funds available in the event that we make expenditures greater than budgeted and or than revenues can support. So these are points that everyone involved have to be very cognizant of.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, oh.
Justin Buffman, I teach algebra and math at Thompson Middle School, and I understand the point that you just highlighted in the corrective action plan, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way. I understand people work their tail off and everything, but it seems like the concern over the $70,000 in this corrective action plan with the budget freeze and everything and non-essential costs, how much money was approved in raises for admin before the school year started? And would that amount of money, would that have covered the halftime art teacher instead of eliminating it in the first place? So we're talking about how non-essential personnel, we can't hire people, you know, where we're told we can't do this, we're told we can't do that. You know, we've been given our you know, we got to stick to budget. So how in the world were those raises approved if we knew we were over budget to start? You approved a raise, which, I mean, I do teach math, so I think I understand that. If you add money to something that you're you're already over, that just makes you over by more. It doesn't lessen your burden, it doesn't lessen your costs. You've just created a bigger gap and a bigger deficit. And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I'm not saying those people don't deserve raises and that they shouldn't have been given them. But if we're this worried about hiring someone half-time to help alleviate the services not being provided to students, the overburdened and overscheduled teachers and the amount of classes they have to teach in preps, which I heard people keep talking about, we can't add this because we're worried about over-prepping people. We got to worry about the contract. Well, as of right now, myself and several of my colleagues, we're teaching more than 3 classes a day, separate classes a day as it is. I have 4 to 5 different preps some days. I'm only supposed to have 3, but I have 4 or 5. So I understand the concerns, and I hear all these things, but how did we get here without being worried about these things back in the summer and the fall? So I guess I just don't understand how those raises were approved and things were put in place if we're that concerned with being over budget. And I don't know, maybe I'm misunderstanding something. I just don't get it.
Thank you. Let me just, I'll allow you. So those raises were originally budgeted. They were in the budget that was approved for fiscal 19 school year. But again, it's become apparent through adjusting of the schedule. We've asked Dr. Colley to do some study of our employees. As we've put that together, the costs have exceeded what we had budgeted. So some things have been caught and gone on. But I agree with you. But those raises were part of the budget that was approved for fiscal 19, but those are in the salary, and many of those will be frozen this evening in the next item after this. But just to answer your question, that they weren't added without knowing. They were budgeted. but there might be some issues with that budget that we'll address in the next item. I'll go to Mr. Collins first because he had his hand up.
Mr. Chair, also, I don't think people are aware, not all administrators got increases.
I just saw that in the summer, I saw those things were approved, but I knew we were in a fiscal crisis, for lack of a better word, so I just didn't understand how.
Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll ask you a question, Mr. Buffman, and I will repeat what you said. I mean no disrespect by asking you this or stating this, but how many of those meetings at which the proposed raises for administrators were on the agenda did you attend?
I did not.
Okay. How many emails did you send to the members of the school committee expressing your, yeah.
I don't think I recall sending.
Okay.
My point was,
Yep.
we're worried about.
I understand your point. Thank you.
So I just didn't understand what we got.
Dr. Flowers.
Just want to clarify my point by mentioning that is something that, that we have to be cognizant of. And when it mentions about non-essential purchases and new hires, I'm wondering if the non-essential means that the hires are non-essential. That anything that we do, we have to justify and justify very well. Whatever comes out between now and when we have our next meeting, if we can justify these expenditures and in communicating with the city, that's going to have to be very open and very transparent about that. You know, I was sitting where you were for many years. I understand the concerns, and I understand that we really, I don't know where we can shave 70 grand, but maybe we can get creative. We'll find out by next week. So, thank you.
Any other discussion?
I'll just say something.
Sure, why not? Go
I'll
ahead,
make my
Mrs.
friends
Sylvia.
in City Hall mad. I think it comes down to that the city does not appropriate enough money to the schools. And they can say they've taken on some things, accounting, different things, but 2 years ago, before the shared services, schools got 37% of the taxpayer dollars. Now we're down to 31%. So they're not really giving away anything, and they really need to give us more money. And I think when the budget goes before the city council, years ago, I mean, when I worked for the city, I had to be there. There were meetings when teachers and every parent, everyone came to badger the council and say, give us the money, we need it. And I think that's what we need, more public outcry. Anyway.
Absolutely.
Now I've lost a lot of friends, but that's okay. It's true.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next item is 511, 5.11, approve operational budget freeze for non-essential cost and purchases. This was recommended by me. I'm going to ask to amend that this evening to have language that says we will freeze this evening all non-encumbered funds in the budget as of tonight's date, 11/13/2008, and those freezes would be overridden by a vote of the school committee.
Second.
Any motion made and seconded? I made the motion, seconded by Mrs. Boland.
Does that in any way conflict with the agreement? Your motion?
No, I think because we're encumbering more funds than what the agreement asked. It asked for a freeze on all non-essential employees and expenditures, and I'm basically freezing our budget tonight at the funds that have been encumbered for further review and approval of the school committee.
But I think most of the funds have now been encumbered, right?
As of my count, Dr. Colley could correct me, this would affect, we have about $3.658 million in funds that have not been encumbered as of today's report.
But
that is
are
before
all
us.
those that have been encumbered essential?
More like 1.8.
Mr. Colley.
It's more like 1.8.
Well, my question on that would be that I see that the total we have remaining and we have committed funds that aren't encumbered. The total of those two come to $3.658 million.
What it means by committed is that the requisitions are already in the pipeline. They just haven't gone all the way to the city pushing the button to make them into a purchase order.
Okay, so I understand. So that would mean that those would be denied as of tonight because the funds would be rejected as of not being encumbered before this evening. Correct?
If you were to say that, yes.
Perfect. Then that's what I'm saying.
Is there anything that's going to get?
Okay, I'm raising a flag.
Okay?
All right. Do the implications of things that are already waiting for POs, that some of our, I believe some of our grants and some of our work that we're doing, the implications are that everything will halt, and either there's a possibility, is there a possibility of bids if they're not done within a certain number of days, et cetera?
Some of those, it depends.
We may have a problem.
Okay, so I'll take the action tonight, and then we can schedule a special meeting and have those addressed before it's at a special meeting in the next couple of weeks.
I have a question.
Mrs.
So
Bowen.
would it help if we eliminated grant, I know that grants falls under a different, should we make grant money separate from the regular budget? Because they are run separately.
If somebody could tell me what the grant money is, it's in there, yes.
It's money that
It's the grant
does
from
not
the,
come
from the whole different.
I understand what grant money is,
So-
and I understand where it's at, but I don't see it in this budget.
It's in the separate, so you're saying it's not a good, I'm just asking, I don't know if.
I'm
that's
just
good.
asking as well. Dr. Colley's prepared to answer how
The,
much of it's
the
grant money?
grants would, my recommendation would be that you do not include the grants. The grants have been written and approved by the granting agencies, including the state. They're expecting us to provide the services that we put into those grants. And in many cases, those grant services were not encumbered because we have actual contracts with those whether it be employees or whether it be companies providing services. So you would probably be violating those contracts. In terms of the committed side of the equation, my concern is that for the most part, some things will wait a long time to get paid. So it'll be very difficult for them to get paid. They'll wait till school committee.
So I guess my question is, I review it tonight, in the committed money, I only see about $280,000 that is under contracts, which I would think would be part of the grant money. If we want to go through it, I don't think I see a lot of money in that 1.9 million that I would think would be funding grant.
You do have about $1.7 million worth of transportation in there.
Which we're not paying, as, the letter to the bus company makes that clear. So that would be approved by the school committee before that fund would be released to the bus company, I would assume.
I think the grant money should be outside any,
And I'd be happy to take it out. If somebody gives me a figure on the grant money this evening, I'll amend my motion.
I won't support the motion unless the grant money is removed.
So isn't there a separate list of grants that we get?
It's
that's
on
what
your
I'm seeing.
AC 410, the grant report.
Yeah, so the separate grant report is what I was referring to.
Yeah.
But I'm saying on the line items here, when you review our expenditure report, the
They
only
do
thing
not.
that could be grant would be,
The two are completely separate.
I understand that, but on our report that we have, there's $1.92 million that's under the committed line.
Yes.
But when I review that report, I only see about $300,000 in contracts. The rest of it is largely bus transportation at 1.7 million. So I would say of the 1.9, no more than 300,000 could be grant related.
No, it wouldn't be any of it would be grant related. The budget that you get is your operational budget. Has nothing to do with grants whatsoever.
Correct. So that 1.9 doesn't have anything to do with grants.
No.
So therefore, the 3.6 million that is not been committed or encumbered in our budget would not affect grants.
So that's what you're referring to. That's why I wanted to make sure that that was the
I'm
case.
committed to, I'm specific to the committed line and the remaining budget line. Those two lines add up to 3.6 million, and that's what I'm intended to freeze this evening.
I just wanted to be clear that grants are not included in that motion.
Right, and
They're
we
not.
Grants
talk
are a
about,
whole
we're talking
different
about the
ballgame.
we're talking about the restricted grants that are listed in 9.2. That's what you're wanting to take out, I think, Joey, and I'm suggesting
Yeah.
too, is that those, it's not money that's included in our budget.
Right.
That has nothing to do with
Right.
with Fund 10 or funds, that's Fund 60, Fund, Title I, Title II, Title III. So that does not affect anything that we're looking at, so.
I don't believe it does.
Yeah, so Joey, you could make a motion to not include.
Again, my motion would be to freeze the budget this evening to all funds that are not encumbered or spent already. So that would be under the committed and the budget remaining lines.
Mr. Chairman, do you have a second on that?
It was made and
Yeah,
seconded.
it was made and seconded. Why can't you include language regarding grants in that motion?
Because I don't believe the grants are in this expenditure report for the budget that I'm looking at.
So you're not including, so if we vote.
I don't
for this-
intend to.
Excluding grants.
So if you
I
vote.
asked the question of Dr. Colley, and he said grants were not included.
So
or
we
be-
can, so if we
or
vote
would
for
be
it, right.
affected.
Yeah, if we vote for it, we're not including those.
So
We're not
grants are
including
not
9.2.
included in that,
9.2.
I'm waiting for a sign from Dr. Colley. Grants are not included in that,
Not in the budget that.
Not 9.2.
okay, I'm good.
Dr. Flowers.
I just have a question. When we say non-essential, sometimes we have to have a definition of what I'm just skimming right down through the budget page. What I might think is non-essential, I'd have to get that really from the people who are responsible for determining that, well, what's in this little pot is essential and what is here isn't. I mean, we know salaries and benefits and all that sort of thing. What can we live without?
And I'm putting that.
I'm not looking for answers right now.
And my plan is to put that burden back on the school committee to determine what's non-essential, what's essential when it's brought to us. We will approve it in a timely fashion. I assure that we will not spend money, we will not hold up any money. We can meet within 48 hours' notice. If we have to meet to approve something that's necessary, we can do it. My point is until we get a handle on the budget, on the items addressed this evening, and we can look at our salaries and understand all our budget is in line to not be overspent. We made a promise to the city council, granted to the last item that we approved, that we would not overspend our budget this year. And until we're comfortable, I'm suggesting that we freeze the budget at as I said, with 3.6 million that is either not spent or encumbered at this point.
I move the question.
Second.
The motion's been made and seconded by Mrs. Gaines and by Mr. Collin. Any more discussion?
We move the question.
Oh, yeah. So the motion's been made, yeah. It does. That's correct, no discussion. Question has been called. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. On to 6.0, which is discussion of the Rogers High School
No.
scheduling.
Now we need, that was calling the question, wasn't it? Now we have to vote on the motion.
Oh, I did. I amended what was before us, so correct. So now there would be a motion in order to approve 5.11 as amended this evening.
So, second.
Motion made by Dr. Flowers, seconded by Mrs. Gaines. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, on to 6.0, Rogers High School scheduling and timeline for 2020. I believe we're going to have a presentation by Mr. Vance, Mr. Young.
So at this point, we've, Rob, myself, and Mr. Monahan have been looking at what a potential schedule would look like for next year. We're looking to have the whole thing kind of formalized by December, so we're still in not necessarily in the building phases, But we have an idea of what's going to work for both of our, the Rogers building schedule as well as our NACTech and PTech programs. We're looking at extended blocks of time, to support the initiatives that we've started this year with the Sizer Institute around personalized learning, student-centered learning, and some project-based. And then also adding those times in that would help support with our AP courses and the needed time in class. On top of that, those blocks of time that we're talking about would pair nicely with our career and tech programs, where the extended period of times would allow for placements at job sites and travel and transition between those two, plus the minute requirements for some of our CTE programs like Cosmo. So we'll have more of a finite schedule in December. We've only just started the share out with faculty to get feedback on the structure that we're looking for next year.
Any questions? Mrs. Boland.
What has the feedback been so far from staff?
So when we presented this to our department heads, they were very positive about it. They seemed to like the added time, the pretty structured routine of the day, and how it would provide different opportunities to support kids throughout the course of the school day.
I don't know, I didn't want to say it out loud. It's not ready for prime time.
Okay, we're good. Yeah, oh yeah, no, it's not. No, not yet. Okay. Any other discussion or questions? Thank you, gentlemen.
Wait, do you have one?
Mrs. Boland.
Yeah.
You're lucky.
Okay, yeah, I know, you're really lucky here, but I just wanted to say that this kind of goes to the last issue, but on our expenditure and revenue report and Fund 60, I don't know what it's going to take for us to get a push going at the high school to get lunch forms in and impact aid forms in. I don't, I would suggest, I know Mr. Gomes too, we had this discussion today, can we get coaches to help? We got to get some help here because we are hemorrhaging like no other, okay? We're down to 52% at the high school. And that number, if it was really true, would be up around 70, okay, percent. It's a lot of kids who don't have lunch forms in, and I know that this is, can we get some help from Eddie Merritt, from Orlando, and at the same time, they could be taking out those other forms. It's lost revenue if we don't really pursue this. We have a date certain on the impact aid form, so.
Yeah, we've been trying to get it to go at that in different ways, and all the ones that you're just mentioning. Like we've leveraged Eddie, we're leveraging Orlando, we're talking with Colley about our coaches working with their teams to get those forms in. It's a lot of
Well, how about no winter sports until everybody's impact aid is in? I'm serious. It would, sometimes it takes some motivation with those high school students. And an impact aid form in, and you have to have either a lunch form turned in or, have been, I'm going to throw that out there because I just see that money I see us bleeding.
I agree. I think we'll have an action item next month on the December meeting that will address the, trying to get the returns up on our impact aid and forms that are necessary.
Yes, they did.
Yeah, we'll continue to work at getting those forms in. I don't know if necessarily not running winter sports would be the best response, but we can continue to leverage coaches to try and get those things in.
Well, just can't, like if you don't have your athletic, your physical form in, you don't practice.
Right.
So you don't have your other forms in. It's a privilege to be able to be on an athletic team. So if they want to be part of the privilege, then, we'll just make it an action in the next meeting.
We'll have that next month. Any other discussion?
Well, restrain myself.
Thank you.
No, if I heard you correctly.
Just a minute. I think Dr. Flowers had a question.
No, it was more of a statement that back in the quarter of a century ago, trying to get the, what they call, now we used to call it the Federal Register forms. And I would even say, if you bring it in, you don't have homework. I mean, that should be, you know, a wonderful incentive. And I got a note from one parent and said, I will not let my child do his homework because it was my fault that I didn't get it in. So if you, well, I got the form back. So sometimes you don't want to punish the students for something that someone else is responsible for. But it's a good idea, though.
Very good.
Okay, that's my,
Thank you.
statement.
Thank you, gentlemen. On to number 7, which is the consent agenda. The first item would be approval of the minutes of prior meeting, 7.1. Is there a motion? Motion's been made and seconded, made by Mrs. Sylvia, seconded by Dr. Flowers. All those, any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item is 7.2, on the personnel actions.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I'll move approval of the personnel actions with the exception of A12, D1, and F1.
Motion's been made to approve the personnel actions with the removal of A12, D1, and the moving of F1 into executive session.
And for okay, thank you.
Second.
Motion made by Mrs. Sylvia, seconded by Mrs. Gaines. Any discussion? Seeing
Yes.
none, all
Wait,
those?
no, there's
Oh,
discussion.
Mrs. Boland.
There's a hire on here, and it's number 13, right? And
A13 is
A13 is a hire, and I thought we were going to,
eliminate.
sit on hires.
It's essential, I think.
That one.
No,
Are they
it's
essential?
recommended, but that.
It's recommended, no one's proved that it's essential.
It was pulled.
A12.
No, A12 is,
A12
A13 is off. A12 is I can say it without
Yeah.
saying the name, it's a social worker. We were gonna,
Yeah, that was pulled.
That was pulled.
A12, okay, so A13 then, we need to pull.
Do
I
we
would
need
like
to
to
pull
pull,
A13?
I would like to pull
So
A13.
I'm just looking at the admin. I think they have input, they'd like to put input on
Yeah,
that.
go ahead. A13. What?
Occupational therapist, I wouldn't pull
I
that.
just explain, I mean, because we just froze the budget for new hires, so explain how we're gonna do it. I mean, that's all, just,
Well, you've got to service, you have to service these kids. Those are IEP kids. You've got to service those kids.
right, but it's only an aide helping out, correct? It's
No,
not a.
well, it's a less expensive way to deliver that service as opposed to using, somebody who's a much more expensive person. You haven't had that. That position was supposed to be filled a long time ago. We had trouble finding
Is that
somebody.
at high school level then? Where, is that at the middle?
I don't know.
No,
Annex.
It's a little one. Yeah, it's the lower level.
Okay, so,
We're violating IEPs right now. We have not serviced those kids. I've got parents that have been, contacting me, saying, when's this gonna happen? I'm going to make up services for these kids.
okay, so
That's
and
essential.
it's essential, and is it okay that we're
Yeah,
filling it with
it's
an aide
not
and
only
not
essential,
and
it's
not
not
a
only
teacher?
essential, it's mandated by law.
No, it's
Therapist,
occupational
therapist.
therapist assistant.
You gotta have them.
Yeah, okay.
Occupational therapist
Does any of that
assistant.
come under grant money?
All right, so I'm just
You gotta
asking.
have
Yeah, no,
You're saying it's absolutely essential.
it's in their IEPs.
All right, then.
Dr. Flowers,
Those particular ones, 12 and 13.
12 has been removed.
12 has been
12, but
removed.
my question is, are any grant monies involved in that?
No.
No? Just wondering.
Okay, let's move it.
Let's vote.
Okay, so,
That's okay.
so the motion has been made and seconded. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Next item is item 8, which is correspondence.
We have any?
Yes.
Motions in order to receive the correspondence as submitted.
Move,
Accept the correspondence as read.
so moved.
Second.
Mrs. Sylvia, motion made by Mrs. Sylvia, seconded by Mrs. Gaines. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Next item is number 9,
Mr.
reports from superintendent and staff.
Mr. Chair,
Mrs. Sylvia.
unless someone has a question, I was going to move that we received 9.1 through 9.7.
Motion has been made to accept as submitted to us this evening 9.1 through 9.7 by Mrs. Sylvia. Seconded by Dr. Flowers. Any discussion?
Is that including the revenue reports? I can't bring it up fast.
Yes.
Yeah, it would be.
Unless you have questions.
If you'd like to remove the revenue reports, we can.
Yeah, let's move, I'd like to remove the revenue
Okay,
report.
so the motion would be to accept as read, made this evening, 9.2 to 9.7, as read. 9.1 will be discussed. Motion has been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We'll go back to 9.1. Dr. Colley and Dr. Jermaine, 9.1, the expenditure report.
So the expenditure report you have tonight is a little bit different from anything you've seen before, because for the first time, we've been working for the last few months with the city, HR, and even the principals in some cases, to identify all the staff that we have been working with and paying through payroll, and to identify what accounts are the appropriate accounts to pay them through, and at the same time, calculate and project out through the end of the year salary, every single benefit, any additional pay, including stipends, severance, anything of that nature that would apply to the lines of the 51,000s and the 52,000 lines in every one of those departments. In doing so, some of the things you're going to notice is some departments, when we budgeted back in the spring, we budgeted one amount, but in reality, we need a different amount now that we have the actual people sitting in place. A lot of what happens over the summer, and I saw this in particular in August, when we finally posted the positions that were available, people moved from one building to another, one position to another, and the minute they move, all those lines have to change, because you may have a teacher at a step 10 going to a position that used to be filled by a step 1 teacher, therefore that whole line is out of budget. Having done that, we encumbered in the particular departments how much money was needed for salaries and benefits, and that has given us a much better picture of where we are for this year. I also asked all the departments to encumber as much as they could predict for the rest of the year for the month of October. So when you see this report that now comes to you as of October 31st, trust and believe, every department had the same marching orders. Go in and encumber everything you're going to need for the rest of the year. Whether they did that faithfully or not, we will see now that it's frozen. One of my areas of concern is the facilities department, which felt that it was difficult, if not inappropriate, to encumber things like electricity, water bills, sewer, and the like, and heat, which now scares me a little bit, because when the bills come, I will be bringing them to the school committee for you guys to decide, is that a bill that we need to pay out of the $3.6 million we have now set aside? Other than that, all I can tell you is it's extremely tight. One of the things I was hoping for was that we would have funding available in the salary lines, because we were tracking one person leaves, we hire somebody else. We're pretty sure we hired people at lower levels. However, when I presented the information back to the departments, come to find out, when in the spring we asked departments, tell me how many people you have working, there were several positions that went unnoticed by the departments. So when I budgeted, I didn't have several positions in the budget. It was told to me that last year we paid for certain positions out of basically the sublines. So they were never added to the actual lines where they should have been budgeted. And then when I asked how many of the long-term subs were going to be rehired, I was told only one of them may be coming back. So I reduced the salary lines for basically substitutes coming into this year. So the savings that we had in terms of new people coming into old positions went to covering those positions. And therefore you have the numbers you see in front of you for each department.
So when you reduce the subs, you didn't put the positions, the money back in for the permanent positions?
Well, I asked all the departments to tell me, here's the positions that I have as permanent positions. Prove to me or tell me that this is true or not, and tell me where I need to add or subtract. And a couple of them never caught it. So they were being paid as subs. Then when I was told the subs are not coming back, I said, okay, reduce the sublines.
But they didn't fill
But then
the
they came back
permanent
this year and said, we seem to have an extra position. And I'm going, where from? Oh, this position used to be a sub last year. We paid it out of the subline. And I didn't know. So creating a staff list that is comprehensive and that has what we call now position control. So now when you go into the elementary school list of staff, each staff has a code number. So for example, you have, instead of 31 teachers, now you have 32 teachers. So there's a PT1, PT2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, all the way to 32. If one of them leaves, now we know that position is available. It won't leave the budget unless we decide to cut a position, and it won't be anything added to the budget because those are the positions that are now in the budget. So unfortunately, it took doing this exercise of going through each and every person that gets paid through payroll to discover that, and to now have a true look at what you have for salaries and benefits for the school district.
Can you, so we've been waiting for this report. Is all the information that the city needs to verify it into the city, or are they waiting on us?
Oh no, they get, the minute I change something, they get an update. So
So
if I
what-
say, hey, this person's really belongs in the grant, or it's split between grant and art, they go and look at it, verify it, change it.
So what are we waiting for then to find out what we have budgeted? When are we gonna see that number, what we budgeted versus what we actually think we're gonna?
You're seeing it right now.
You think we're gonna, that number then is totally reflective?
There's a couple of areas that I did put on there as a note to the side on the budget where we're looking for verification. So for example, the retirees. I have a question as to the list of retirees and how many belong here versus there, and that's why I have a question on that, and I have the city looking through our lists to make sure our list match their list.
Right, because you said we have to wait till next month till it's verified.
Well, only because we only meet once a month. So I don't know how long it's going to take for the verification, but I'm sure it'll be done for the next school committee meeting.
Well, regular. Next
No, I don't mean, I mean the regular meeting in December. I don't go that far. And the other thing, you know, I'll be honest, one of the questions that came up was school committee salaries and benefits, because nobody's able to show me where that is, and somebody mentioned that it may be in the city charter. So I had the city pull the city charter to see benefits, what benefits are you're eligible for, and the stipend, all of that, so that I can be sure that you are all getting what you deserve and should be getting.
I'm willing to sit
Yeah.
down. I'm willing to sit down.
They
and
asked us,
negotiate
where
that.
is this coming from? I'm like,
We'll be sitting down to discuss that. We'll negotiate that.
Absolutely.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. Next item is item number 10, suggested meeting dates and agenda items. We have a meeting that we've now, Monday, November 19th, Strategic Planning Committee at 5 p.m. in NACTEC Room 900. Monday, November 19th will also be the Special School Committee meeting to address the Thompson Middle School scheduling issues. Friday, November 30th, Wellness Subcommittee at 9:30 a.m., NACTEC Room 900. And Tuesday, December 11th is the next regular school committee meeting here at Pell School at 6:30. At this time, as far as meeting dates, I'd like to take a moment to recognize one of our committee members, Dave Collin, who was not successful in his bid for re-election to the school committee. This will be his last regular school committee meeting. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Dave for his service. Dave and I, well, the people watching will well know that we don't agree on a lot of things sometimes at the meeting, but one thing I will agree with Dave is that his heart and soul has been doing what he believes is right for the children and the families of Newport. That's one thing I will agree with him on, that he is constantly watching out for and done a good job. So I know on that end, he'll be leaving big shoes to fill. I just want to thank him for his 4 years of service to the school committee. For me personally, the last 2 years, I could always count on Dave to bring up what should be rightly done for the families and the students of Newport. So I do appreciate that, and I want to thank him for that. I'll also let my colleagues speak to Dave at this point too, as well, if they like. Mrs. Boland?
Yes, it's been very colorful with David on the committee, but there isn't anybody more passionate about how he feels, and I'm going to miss him. He's a very kind, gentle person underneath it all, and he will be sorely missed. And I don't think he's moving out of Newport, so we may see him again. But thank you, David, for your service.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Gaines.
I was looking for the correct word, and I think colorful is it. Dave's presence will be missed. I'm sure we will all miss him. I won't be here to miss him.
No.
That's right. How about that? But I wish you well, Dave.
Thank you.
And I thank you for your service.
And David, that goes for me too.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I've known David since he was about that high. Just a little tad. And anyway, thank you for your 4 years of service, and I'm sure I'll see you around.
Anybody? Okay.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Cronin.
Yes.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
I'm sure we'll see each other around. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, my colleagues, and let me thank the voters of the city of Newport for the extraordinary privilege. But tonight, I think, is a night for Joe Eva. So let me salute you. If I had a hat like yours, I would tip my hat to you, to an extraordinary woman who has given almost her entire adult life to education, and most importantly, as you say, to all kids. Congratulations, Joe Eva, and God bless you.
Thank you.
Congratulations, Joe Eva.
Thank you, Dave.
If I could, I should have said this when I was at the mic, but I forgot. I was a little bit ruffled over there. It's after 18 years. It's like a change of life for me. I'm sure I'm going to find something to fill the time, but it's a good feeling to leave this committee with a smile on my face, and that's because of the committee-elect that's coming in. The people of Newport have elected people who appreciate and value collaboration. And the only way this district is going to move forward is with collaboration. I've said it forever. The schools can't do it alone. All of the problems that our kids have come to us. And we're expected to solve all the problems, but we can't do it alone. It takes a village. It's not just a thing you say, it's the truth. It takes every one of us to do it, and we've got a committee coming on that's going to keep this district moving forward. And I am so thankful for that, that I can just waltz away and keep smiling. So I wish them all the luck in the world. I wish the superintendent good luck and good tenancy. And I think that's the word. And let's just keep things moving. Keep it positive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next order would be to move into executive session. If somebody would like to read that motion for us.
I can do it.
There you go.
Yeah, you got a voice now.
Mr. Chair, I move that we recess the regular meeting and convene in executive session in the Bell School Conference Room under the jurisdiction of Rhode Island General Law, Chapter 4642, 46-5, exceptions. A1, any discussions of the job performance, character, or physical or mental health of a person or persons, provided that such person or person affected shall have been notified in advance in writing and advised that they may require that the discussions be held at an open meeting, or A9, any hearings on or discussions of a grievance filed pursuant to a collective bargaining agreement.
You've heard the motion made by Mrs. Sylvia. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Gaines. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We'll now adjourn to executive session. And we will report out after executive session on the events. Recess is the proper word.
But it's just, you're not going to have the environment with the new standards, with the certified teacher in those experiences. We're not going to be able to prepare them as well for the future in the arts. And you'll know they have people coming into businesses now trying to get that creativity back with the professional world, because it's like cracked in half or broken, completely forgot about if it's not used. And so the language in the standards now is really keeping it a lot more active. So,
Thank you. Mr. Collins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, I agree with everything you said, Mr. Chairman, regarding your suggestions for the power hour and more. I have a question regarding Ms. Eichhardt's comments, not to her, but to the administration. We're very fortunate to potentially have retired teachers from the Newport School District who will give their time toward the arts or to anything else. Are we concerned that in doing that, we are circumventing the normal process, namely budgeting for said teachers to do their job on a full-time basis? Snapshot, are we
our intent,
are we breaking the rules here?
Yeah, our intent of the retired teachers is not to make up the additional class 5th and 6th grade. That's not our intent. Our first choice was to hire a .5 art teacher. That's our first choice in trying to make sure that the 5th and 6th graders have 2 art periods.
Okay.
So the retired teachers was an attempt to create maybe an after-school program with the focus for 5th and 6th, and or an opportunity to offer something during power hour, but it is no way to cover the classes that 5th and 6th are missing, or to cover the standards that we know Nicole is working really hard on.
Okay, I appreciate that, Dr. Bean. Do you then in some way disagree, or does the administration in some way disagree with Ms. Eichardt's comments?